In higher education, we learn a lot. Math, science, public speaking, research methods. We master the technical stuff. But you know what I never saw in my college catalog? Emotional intelligence. And yeah, I mean the actual printed catalog. Remember those? I flipped through mine more than once, and I can tell you, there was nothing in there about managing emotions, self-awareness, or navigating conflict. Not one thing. The absence has stuck with me throughout my academic journey, and especially now in my role shaping how students experience higher education. Good afternoon. I'm Nicole Carr, Associate Vice President for Student Academic Success at the University of South Alabama. So here I am. Here we all are, graduates of various colleges and universities, experts in our fields, still hesitating to have tough conversations, dodging conflict, smiling through discomfort because no one ever taught us how to sit with it, let alone move through it. And I'll be honest, I wasn't taught any of that either, not in a classroom anyway. But here's the twist. I have emotional intelligence. I'm intentionally humorous. Ironic, huh? The problem was that I just didn't know how to apply it to leadership and how I showed up for my team. So I grew up in the rural South. I'm a stoic, raised by stoics. And I don't mean quiet strength stoic. I mean, we don't cry at work, period. And as a proud stoic, I carried the same approach into my parenting. I raised my sons with 3 rules. Life isn't fair. We don't raise whiny babies. And my personal favorite, the world does not revolve around you. I believe in these rules. They've always worked for me. They're clear, and they keep you grounded. And then I got promoted. I started leading a growing team of student success professionals, smart people, diverse people, a team of people who were performing. Metrics met, outcomes strong. But deep down, I knew something was off. Not because my team was failing, because I wasn't connecting. Not in a way that truly supported who they were, not just their work, but their well-being, their full humanity. And that's when it hit me. For years, we focused on being student ready, but I had to ask myself, are we staff ready? And the question didn't just challenge my leadership style, it challenged my identity as a stoic, as someone who prided herself on grit over emotion. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'd like to share how embracing mental health, self-awareness, and professional leadership coaching transformed the way we advise, support, and lead. How it helped create a more connected, more compassionate environment, not just for students, but for staff too. And how, over time, it helped this stoic focus a little less on IQ and a whole lot more on EQ. Now, you might be wondering, why would an advising team need coaching skills? The short version, because the kids are not okay. Today's students are navigating a very different world from the one many of us grew up in. They've practiced school shooting drills since elementary school. They lived through the chaos of COVID, school closures, isolation, constant uncertainty. And they live on social media, where they're bombarded by extremes. Hyper-curated perfection on one side, overwhelming mental health content on the other. A study from the Institute of Education Sciences followed first-time college students from the 2019-2020 year. 3 years later, nearly 3 out of 4 reported increased stress and anxiety tied directly to the pandemic. 3 out of 4. The data confirmed what we were already feeling in our offices and our classrooms. This is the anxious generation. And they're not just navigating academic pressure. They're navigating instability in the world, in their communities, and often within themselves. We realized a lot of students weren't in crisis, but they weren't okay either. They needed tools for reflection, for resilience. They needed a way to name what they were feeling and figure out what to do with it. And that's when I knew something had to shift. So for our annual staff retreat, I decided to try something different. I brought in a leadership coach. Not just any coach, a professional trained in positive psychology, CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, and DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy. And listen, you know, we love our acronyms in higher ed, but these weren't the usual ones. These were more grad school site catalog than student success workshop. Well, her work, combined with the principles of appreciative advising, turned out to be a game changer. Our coach taught us how to slow down and recognize what we were feeling and what the feelings were reacting to. Then we learned to look at the objective facts underneath the emotions and trace the thoughts that followed. That process alone, identifying the facts, observing the thoughts, and naming the emotion, was incredibly liberating. When we started applying it to the framework to our own lives, something clicked. We stopped reacting and we started aligning our actions with our goals. The process is called thought modeling, and it gave us real, practical tools to understand the emotional roots behind our decisions and behaviors. Once we practiced it ourselves, we started using it with students. And pairing it with appreciative advising, that's when it really took off. So traditional advising is checklist-based. What classes do you need? Have you registered? Are you on track to graduate? Appreciative advising flips that on its head. We start with dream conversations. What do you want your life to look like after college? Why did you choose this major? What lights you up? Those questions lead to discovery, a much deeper understanding of a student's motivations, goals, and values. And this matters because advisors absorb a lot of student emotion. It's a quiet truth in the profession. Students bring their stress, their worry, and their uncertainty into our offices. And we feel it, sometimes deeply, always daily. Our coach helped us name the work. She called it emotion management, and she reminded us it's part of the job, even if it never shows up in the job description. And that wellness support, well, it's not optional anymore. Through coaching, we started helping students reframe what they used to see as failures. A bad grade wasn't just a sign they weren't trying hard enough. It was a data point. It generated a thought, which produced a feeling, then an action. And once we helped them map that out, they could rebuild, set clearer goals, take ownership, and move forward with confidence. Slowly but surely, we help students see themselves not as failing, but as growing. And honestly, we started to see ourselves that way too. I'm a faculty member who became an administrator. I used to say exactly what I was thinking, which sometimes sounded like, oh, that's a stupid idea. I didn't always say it that way, but the tone, the message, it came through loud and clear. Coaching helped me pause, feel the reaction, name it, then respond with the outcome in mind, not the emotion. Like the time I opened an angry parent email at 6 a.m. It would have ruined my whole day before I even had breakfast, but now I read it. I feel it, sometimes a quick flash, and then I bring myself back to neutral. Neutral. It means I can respond objectively without letting the feeling of frustration spill over to anything else. And it's not just me. Our advisors are feeling the shift too. When she was an advisor, Dallas had a student who couldn't stay motivated. Studying felt like punishment. But the gym, that was the student sanctuary. So they made a deal. Gym time became the reward for study time. It was simple but powerful. By reframing the process, Dallas helped the student shift his mindset. He started prioritizing studying so he could go to the gym. It stopped being something he had to suffer through and started becoming something he could manage, even own. Another advisor, Josh, had a different challenge. A student came in completely overwhelmed, not just by school, but by life. Instead of offering advice or sharing campus resources, Josh did something else. He paused. He listened. He asked questions that helped the students sort through what really mattered, what they were feeling, what they wanted. By the end of the conversation, the student wasn't just calmer, they had clarity. They had direction. Not because someone helped them find the answers, but because someone helped them find their own. That's what coaching does. And there are countless other stories like that, because our advising office is often the front door to campus. New staff come through, get coaching training, and then some move on to other departments. But they don't leave coaching behind. They take it with them into housing, into student life, into classrooms. And little by little, the culture shifts. Emotional intelligence becomes part of how we lead, how we support, and most importantly, how we connect. And when that happens, outcomes are better, and students feel like they belong. And that changes everything. My experience taught me that trying something new, especially something that feels very uncomfortable, can lead to real, lasting change. Leaning into emotional intelligence didn't just make me a better leader. It helped me build deeper, more honest relationships with students, with colleagues, and with myself. Over time, those relationships started shaping the culture around us. Students felt more supported, not just the ones who raised their hands, but the quiet ones, the overwhelmed ones, the ones still figuring out how to ask for help. This kind of shift doesn't come from a policy. It sure doesn't come from one training or a new org chart. It comes from people. People willing to reflect, willing to lead differently, willing to show up in a way that makes space for others. Because we can't claim to be student ready if we're not staff ready first. We can't help students navigate their emotions if we haven't done that work ourselves. And let me be clear, it's not always easy. The approach asks more of us. It asks us to sit in the hard moments, to ask better questions, to manage our own empathy so we don't burn out while we're trying to hold everyone else up. But coaching gave us language. It gave us tools. And maybe, most importantly, it gave us permission to support students in a healthier way and take care of ourselves too. What started as a single experiment is now spreading across campus, one conversation at a time. In addition to the improvements I mentioned earlier, most importantly, we are witnessing a student experience that feels more connected, more human, and more whole. So, if you take anything from what we talked about today, let it be this. Don't be afraid to try something new. It might feel uncertain at first, but it just might change your team. It might change your campus, and it just might change you. Thank you.